Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another Destiny 2 video, and today we're talking about mods. Since mods now form an integral part of the endgame gear system, the legendary ones offering additional attack and defense on top of the base bonuses, in turn allowing you to hit the current cap of 305, it's fair to say that there's something you should have a good understanding of. I already explained how the underlying mod system works and how it impacts infusion in my guide to hitting 290 plus power level, so if you haven't seen that, I will link that down below. I'll likely recap a few points in this video, but for the most part, that should cover the core system. In this video, I wanted to actually take a moment to test out all of the individual mods to see just how much benefit they provide, whether there's any difference between the rare and legendary offerings, whether they provide additional benefits when stacked, and pretty much anything else you might want to know. As such, I've collected a wide range of different data samples to provide you with the most comprehensive guide to all the mods, and in turn, help you decide which mods you should be using and which ones are ultimately a waste of your time. So, if you do enjoy this, and you do find it helpful, then a like would be super appreciated, and be sure to comment down below and let me know what you guys think or if you have any questions. Now, to begin with, before we can start conducting any experiments, we need to establish a baseline, a constant which all subsequent results can be compared against. This is my second hunter. He's currently wearing a random selection of currently unmodded gear. There are absolutely no mods in any of the slots on any of the armor pieces, so this is as basic as you can get. Since in Destiny 2 the base armor stats are now mobility, resilience and recovery, I also don't need to worry about the inherent armor stats affecting the results of my tests for ability, grenade and melee recharge. Furthermore, I have no weapons on with perks that'll in any way skew the results, examples being Mitre Mini, which provides movement speed bonuses, although in truth that wouldn't really have made a difference anyway, and I do use Mitre Mini for the last part of this video, but again, not important. I'm also using the Night Stalker subclass since my melee is a grenade, so it means I won't actually have to go and melee an enemy to proc the move. So again, making things as clean cut as possible. So, with all of that in mind, this is our baseline, a 295 power level hunter with unmodded gear, a mobility stat of 8, resilience at 5 and recovery at 0. Of course, there are a wide range of mods to test, some focus on ability recharge times, others focus on weapon handling and reload speed, and some aim to improve your base stats. We'll be testing them in groups, and we'll begin with the ability stuff. The default recharge time for my grenade ability is 1 minute and 22 seconds. I measured this from the moment the icon flashed white, i.e. the second the move was activated, and measured it right up until the icon goes grey to indicate it's back and ready to use. I use this very same method for every ability, so I can confidently say that the start and end points for the timer are the same at all times. For the melee ability, the recharge time came in at 1 minute and 36 seconds, and for my class ability, it came in at 24 seconds. Now, something worth calling out right here is that there is absolutely no difference between the rare and legendary mods when it comes to the actual bonuses. The only difference between the two of them is that the legendary ones offer +5 defense or attack, in turn allowing you to boost your power level. Here you can see two different grenade recharges. On the left is a blue rare mod, on the right is a purple legendary mod. Both clock in at exactly the same time. This also helped me out during the test because it meant I could avoid wasting all my good legendary mods and I could just use the blue ones. Additionally, I also tested the class ability mod to see if the term was more broad and applied across the board, like, would this mod also impact my super recharge or my grenade and my melee? But alas, it doesn't. These mods are very specific. Grenade is just for grenade, melee is just for melee, and class ability is just for your class ability, i.e. Titan Barricade, Warlock Rift, and Hunter Dodge. So, having cleared all of that up, let's now do the comparisons. With one single grenade mod in place, my recharge time goes from the original time of 1 minute and 22 seconds down to 1 minute and 14 seconds. That is an 8-second improvement. For my melee abilities, it goes from 1 minute 36 down to 1 minute 27, which is a 9-second improvement. Now do bear in mind there is a tiny margin for error here since I'm taking the flat numbers and I'm not showing you guys the milliseconds. In truth, the percentage difference for both of these is practically identical. And then finally, for the class ability, we go from 24 seconds down to 22 seconds. So, already, with just one single mod slotted in, we can see there are some noticeable improvements. I think it's fair to say that grenade and melee mods provide the most value, since the class abilities, at least in my case, are already pretty quick to refresh. However, the next question is, do they stack? And the answer is yes, they do. For this, I then slotted 2 grenade mods in to 2 of my armor pieces, and the recharge time then went from the original 1 minute 22 seconds down to 1 minute and 8 seconds. That is a 14-second difference, which is pretty noticeable. Now, from what I've been able to see, looking across both my Hunter and 269's Titan, it seems like grenade mods only show up in 4 of the 5 armor slots: helmet, arms, chest and legs, whereas cape or class items appear to have considerably fewer options. With that in mind, there's likely a limit to how many you can stack, thus preventing you going kind of 100% all in on one. However, another quick test I did run with 2.6's Titan was to use his class ability. The timing is a little different than the Hunter's, with the base ability recharge coming in at 37 seconds, meanwhile with one mod, that dropped down to 34 seconds, 2 mods resulted in 31 seconds, and 3 mods resulted in 29 seconds. So there appears to be an element of diminishing returns, meaning you might want to think twice about going all in on just one mod. Also, if any of you guys have seen grenade mods on capes or class items, do let me know down below. It would be good to know whether or not they actually exist. But regardless, we know for sure they do stack, meaning there is value in using more than one of the same type, depending of course on what you're going for. So, that is a look at the ability focus mods. Next up we have the weapon focus ones. These typically revolve around either reload speed, recoil reduction, or weapon handling, which improves ready time after swap, sprint, and also ADS or aim down sights time. Reload speed is easy to time, handling speed is a little bit harder to be 100% accurate, but you'll see it all side by side just so you can see for yourself. To begin with, the Kinetic weapon mod to improve your reload speed, by default, the reload speed for my Nameless Midnight on empty is 2.1 seconds. I measured this from the moment the hand moves, so that there's this little gap here, right up until the gun returns to its resting position. Again, this was used for all experiments, so the comparison points are identical. With the Kinetic mod in place, the reload speed then jumps down to 1.82 seconds, and while the difference might not seem that drastic, if you factor this in during a DPS phase where you might not have a Titan barricade to reload your weapons, then it means you'll be back in the action quicker than most. And similarly, if this is in PvP, it'll also give you the edge on your opponent if they're running with the default reload times. Following on from there, we then have energy weapon handling speed. Again, as mentioned, this one is a little bit harder to time, so it's far easier to just look at them side by side. You can quite clearly see that the ADS time is quicker with the mod in, as is your weapon swap and ready time. Maybe not drastically so, but there is a difference. However, in addition to that, another mod for the energy weapons is the recoil reduction mod. For this, I shot against the wall without compensating with the right stick, and I did this with the more steady and stable Skyburner's Oath and the more violent Mida Mini. On the left is the default recoil pattern, and on the right is the recoil once the mod is applied. Obviously, different weapons have different recoil patterns, and if I was to test every single one of them, this video would be longer than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I will simply summarise this by saying yes, it has an effect on recoil, so if that is something that troubles you, perhaps consider using it. But for me personally, I wouldn't opt for one of these mods over something that gives me my abilities back sooner, especially since most weapons are pretty manageable on the recoil front. Next up we have power weapons. Again, another reload test. My Sura sniper rifle's default reload time comes in at 3.16 seconds. Meanwhile, with a mod in place, we are now looking at a reload time of 2.79 seconds. And given that these are power weapons we're talking about, your biggest damage dealers, then it's safe to say this is a worthwhile investment. As for weapon handling, again, showing this to you guys side by side, you can see the ADS time and the weapon swap time. So, those are your weapon focus mods. The only ones that remain are the character stat mods, and in truth, these are pretty clean cut. I don't need to demonstrate their effectiveness because essentially all they do is give you an extra ability point. Mobility adds 1 to mobility, resilience adds 1 to resilience, and recovery adds 1 to recovery. It doesn't get much simpler than that. In the same way that you would pick a different node on your armor based on the ability point that you want to focus on, that is basically what these mods do. So if you wanted to be ultra tanky with a ton of resilience, for example, then getting resilience armor and stacking as many resilience mods would allow you to exceed the normal threshold. Similarly, if you are, say, a Titan, and you want it to be faster than normal, you could then more heavily spec into mobility to enable this. So these mods give you these options. Now as a reminder, once you hit power level 280, you unlock the ability to convert your blue mods into legendary mods. You need 3 of a kind in order to get 1 legendary mod, but the trade-off is that you'll then get +5 power in either defense or attack, and if you want to hit the current cap of 305, you'll want a full set of legendary mods on your 300 base gear. Additionally, during the infusion process, remember that you need to essentially remove the mod out of the equation when calculating the level that it will come out. A 285 exotic is actually a 280 exotic with a +5 mod, so if you infuse that into an item that doesn't have a mod, you'll end up with a 280 item and not a 285 item, at least until you then go and put a legendary mod in it and return it to 285. But the question then remains, now that we've seen what these mods can do, which ones are actually the best? And the honest answer is that it will heavily depend on you, as a player, what activities you play the most, and your class. That being said, there are some very obvious conclusions that can still be drawn. For example, when looking at the percentage change or difference between some of the numbers, there is a 16% difference in reload speed when using the mod on a kinetic weapon, for example. Meanwhile, the percentage difference on grenade or melee recharge is only 10%. However, when you look at the raw numbers and disregard the underlying percentages, there's clearly more value in grenade and melee recharge mods. I think it's fair to say that being able to shave 8 or even 14 seconds off a cooldown is going to provide considerably greater value than shaving a little under a second off a reload. Of course, if the kinetic weapon is the brunt of your damage output and grenades are something you don't use so frequently, then sure, a quicker reload over an entire boss fight will make a difference, but this is of course where you'll have to draw your own conclusions. I'd say that if you're a PvP player, you will get considerably more value out of the weapon handling and reload speed mods than, say, a PvE player. Meanwhile, PvE players will more than likely lean into the abilities more heavily. Thanks to the Titan experiment, we also know that there appears to be an element of diminishing returns when you stack too many. So a good build to run would be 2 grenade mods, 2 melee mods, and whatever else you want to throw into your class item, so 2-2-1. Of course, you can then adjust that format depending on your preferred abilities. If you are more class ability and melee focused, lean into those. If you are more grenade and melee focused, then lean into those. So you will need to adapt this to fit your playstyle. But my final conclusion, the information that has ultimately shaped the mod choice that I have on my characters, is that a 2-2-1 setup is pretty solid, allowing you to get a good reduction on your cooldowns for 2 of your core abilities, and then the freedom to also dip into something else on the 3rd. Personally, I've gone with 2 grenade mods, 2 melee mods, and 1 power weapon reload speed, but again, you might have other ideas. Either way, hopefully this video has been helpful to you guys. Hopefully now you have a clearer picture as to just how useful each of these mods are. Any questions, by all means drop them down below. But thank you very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.